Traditional is not thumb based, at least for rudimental. For a drum kit, you can get away with using thumb, but with traditional, you don't want to do that for marching stuff. The speed and the power does not come from the thumb motion at all. It's actually rotation of the forearm. Basically, the bicep is moving up and down while you're doing this, but it's actually the rotation here of your hand like this. Your thumb is basically staying stationary and is making a lowercase t, and your stick just fits inside of there. It's sitting on the cuticle, and then this finger just kind of curves around a little bit. You don't want it to straighten up, and the reason why you don't want that straightened up is one, you're flipping off the audience, but two, you're actually causing tension down here. So if you like squeeze, you can actually feel it here, and even in the thumb if you do that, and then the pinky's just hanging out here. It's all about the rotation, so it has nothing to do with this. That would keep your forearm stationary if you're playing with that thumb technique. I had a tenor player one time who like tried to teach the snare line like about that, and like every snare drummer that I've actually studied with is like, no, don't do that. Like they were making an educated guess that was wrong for what they were doing, because like they march tenors, they don't know, they're just making a guess here. But for snare drum, whenever I'm playing, it's all about rotation while doing this. So you need to make it so that your wrist can move back. The stretches that I do at the beginning of these streams, one is this way, you rotate and you just hold it here for 20 to 30 seconds. But the others, you rotate the other side. And the reason why is you want to be able to relax so that way you can get a full rotation here. Another thing to look out for, there's a tendency for some people when they're playing traditional, if you were to pour water in your hand, where the water would sit as if this was a cup, and that is bad because it's already like extended your rotation and you can't get back further. So when you're playing like this with your thumb lined up here with your forearm, the water spills out. It actually, like if I were to pour water in the hand, it just whoop, fall right out, as opposed to like this. So you want to make sure that when you're playing those legato strokes that you're able to get that full rotation like this, as opposed to like this, where you can't pull back much further. You've been working on your thumb for so long, now you have to start over. Yeah. That's okay. As somebody who like marched traditional, like for all the years, like I marched snare. Now I exclusively play match grip. So I have the opposite problem of you. I went from traditional to match, and you're going from match to traditional. All good. We all got things to work on. Before I get to the next tip, I just want to say really quickly that you can find literally thousands of hours of free drumming play-alongs and drumming tips in the link at the top of the description, or by going into my home tab of YouTube. I know it sounds weird, but I did it because I learned it from 4-time world champion snare drummer, so I figured he knew what he was talking about. And guess what? It works. He recommended getting a doorknob, one that snaps back in place. So it has like a spring in it, and you put it in between your ring and your middle finger, and you hold it like you would a snare stick, but it goes in between these two fingers, and you again line your wrist up with your forearm, and you rotate this. This will work on your endurance and your speed and your power and whatnot. I literally would walk through the school hallways from class to class doing this on the field while I was like center snare, and the instructors would be talking, and I'd have this in my cargo shorts, and I just pull it out while they would be like saying to do something, and I would do this. It also does work for like Steven's grip as well. So if you play like 4 mallet and you were working on the rotation, that can help with that as well. Straightening your fingers when you're playing may be slowing down your playing or impacting your endurance. There's 2 things that instructors will often critique with this. One is it's very easy to kind of like spot and see when hands don't match each other. Another is that it might cause some unnecessary tension, which will impact your speed, your endurance, your sound quality, etc. If you are holding your stick in a way that is causing your hand to absorb some of the vibration, going to literally choke off the sound quality, as opposed to if you relax and let the stick vibrate a little bit, you'll be able to get more sound out of it. If you are holding your stick in a way that your fingers are tight, it's going to actually prevent your hand from being able to move naturally. So for example, if I use my wrist like this and make it floppy and just nice and relaxed, as soon as I squeeze my fingers like a fulcrum, if you're using a front fulcrum like this, I'm unable to bend my wrist. It is very difficult to bend my wrist unless I'm doing it very slowly, as opposed to as soon as I relax like this. If you want to use like a wrist approach where you're playing with a nice relaxed wrist technique, you're not going to be able to do that with tight or straight fingers. This can also create some unnecessary tension in your hand, which can have some profoundly negative impacts on your playing. So for example, I was talking to a drummer over the weekend who was talking about somebody that they knew who had very tight hands, and they ended up getting all sorts of hand troubles to the point where they could no longer practice the way that they used to. And it came from decades of bad technique. They were squeezing too much, which causes unnecessary tension. If I have my thumb tight right here with my index finger, it's going to cause some tension all along here. As soon as I relax that, you can feel it go away there. If I am straightening out my middle finger or pulling these fingers off of the stick while playing traditional, so like this, it's going to create all kinds of tension down here and along this side of the arm. All of this tension, again, is going to prevent that natural fluid motion with your hands when you're playing. So tension is a bad thing. So if you're straightening your fingers, or your fingers are coming off the stick in a way that is allowing the stick to vibrate so that you can get more relaxed sound, but it's not causing that unnecessary tension all up and down the forearm, etc., that is okay, generally speaking. It is a visual tick in terms of like it looks different from people around you if you're in drumline, but in terms of like your long-term ability to play, it's likely not going to cause some issues, and it's likely not going to impact the sound quality. Focus not just on how it looks, but focus on how is it impacting your sound quality and how is it impacting the tension and the motion and the mechanics in your hand, depending on the technique that you're using. When you are playing, if you have pain in your drumming, like dull muscle pain, or you're starting to develop calluses like on the cuticle, or if you play mallets, you might get one in your palm, that is normal. But if you start to feel sharp pain, that is a bad thing. So if you are experiencing sharp pain when you're playing traditional or with your match grip or whatever, one of the things that you can do to figure out what the problem is to go through and individually tighten each one of your fingers, like press them into it, over squeeze on your fulcrum, over squeeze with your technique, whatever it is, and then where you feel that sharp pain, that's where you know, oh, I need to work on that slowly and make it so that I am no longer squeezing extra hard when I am playing A, B, or C technique. And the best way to work on that, again, is to just always go back to like the technique exercises and go very slow when working on it, so that way you can improve the technique without messing up your hands for the long term. Because like, since I've been playing for over 26 years, I've seen so many drummers who had to stop because of their hands. I've been able to keep going because my technique has improved over time and because I learned how to play more relaxed, and a lot of that came from playing slow. So all these like thousands of like play-alongs, the reason why they go so slow, like as slow as 20 beats a minute, is because you can really refine your technique that way. My junior year of high school, I was in the all-state percussion ensemble. We did this thing where we played like 3 camps, like as a snare line, like it was just like a bunch of snare drummers up on the stage. And the center snare was a very famous soloist. And this person played a snare solo that got a bit long-winded. When they were playing it, they were doing like all this like backsticking and whatnot with the lights off, and they had these glow-in-the-dark sticks. Somebody that I know was in charge of turning off the lights and turning them back on when he was done with the solo. But because this particular soloist was just going on and on and on, so this person turned on the auditorium lights in the middle of a solo, and the snare soloist got pretty upset. So he starts like hitting the drum while yelling, "Lights off! Lights off, please!" Trying to make it so the audience can't hear, and he just keeps screaming it, "Lights off, please!" And so eventually the person turns off the lights and he like does his little solo thing and finishes it. But I laughed so hard. It was a hilarious moment.